In this episode I will test out the 150 to 600 mil and compare it with my 600 prime lens. See how that goes. As a wildlife photographer and video filmmaker, I want the best lenses, of course. My subject, the wild animals, are often far away, but sometimes they get close. And I often use my 600 millimeter Canon EF lens f4, and it's working very well, I think. But sometimes the subject comes too close and I can't get them in frame. So I'm carrying 100 to 400 as well, but then I have to change lens every time. And well, wildlife doesn't wait. They do their thing and then they're gone. So I've been looking at this zoom lens, and since I already invested in a 600 prime lens, I thought I would try out a cheaper one. So I bought a Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter sports version, and in this video I will try that out and see what happens. So I will do some static tests just to compare the image quality and the background and so on, and then I will go and do some field testing, low light, quick situations, and see how the lens works, if it is good enough or not. So the first test is putting the camera and the lens on a tripod, focusing on a very cooperative bird that I found in a shop somewhere. And I have a background that is a little bit far away, but not that far away, so we'll see how that affects the image. I will use the same shutter speed, but use the most open aperture for every shot. If I would to compare them with the same aperture, that wouldn't be a good comparison of what the quality is on the lens. And for the same reason, the ISO will change. Since you can have another aperture, the ISO will also change. But I will try to make it an even exposure all the time. Okay, so let's watch compare some photos here from the test shoot. I did mess up the first test shoot when I was out there in the woods, and when I got home I realized that I had to do a new set of photos. Probably I was rushing it because I wanted to do the field test. Anyway, looking on the left side we see the Canon prime lens 600 f4, and on the right side the Sigma 150 to 600. You can clearly see the difference between the f-stops 4 and 6.3 by the blurriness in the background. It's much smoother on the left side on the Canon. In this case I have the stick about 4 meters from the bush behind, and I am standing about 10 meters from the birds here. So now I'm zoomed in at 100%, and as you can see here, there was a slight hiccup when I did it. The focusing when I was shooting with the 150-600 locked onto the branch, and I didn't notice that. So that's why we're looking at the branch here. But if you compare the key rings here, you can see on the right side it's little more less sharp, and it's much more sharp on the Canon. But this is 100% pixel peeping. So let's see how it is when we go to the background bird. And here you see the separation between the birds is about 10-15 centimeters. So on the left side we have focusing on the puffin, and the bird that is a little bit behind is a little more blurry. While with the 6.3 you have a pretty good picture, 100% on the background bird. Could be disturbing the photo. It's hard to separate birds sometimes. So here we have the 400 millimeter, and you can see the difference. It's still blurrier on the Canon, but it's much more detailed than with the 600 f4. And let's see how the bird is. Let's zoom in 100% on the bird. And I focused on the eye, both these ones, And if you pixel peep as I do on the screen, my screen here, I can see that the 100 to 400mm is sharper, even though it is less depth of field. But the 150 to 600 is, well, it's still looking good. Looking at the background bird, well, it's almost no difference there. It's very, very small difference between them. It is a little more sharp on the Sigma than on the Canon. So now we have a 1.4 teleconverter on the 600. Canon on the left, Sigma on the right. And it's still blurrier on the left side. So let's see how 100% pixel peeping is. And here you see a clear difference with the quality of the Canon. It's really sharp. And the Sigma is sharp. Remember, this is 100% pixel peeping now. But it is clearly sharper. So let's compare the 400 with the teleconverter. Well, the background is almost similar. It's a slightly more detail on the Sigma side. What happens here when you put a teleconverter is on the 100-400 is that it actually gets a smaller aperture. So it's an f8 for the Canon, and this is f6.3 on the right side. So it should be blurrier on the right side, but it isn't really. So that's a little bit strange. We zoom in 100%, we can see the Canon is, with the teleconverter, still sharper than the Sigma, but the Sigma is actually really sharp. I was a bit impressed of that. So overall you can say that, well, looking at the full picture, there are slight difference. The Canon is sharper even with the teleconverter. And when you do 100% pixel peeping, you will see this very clearly. But if you are using the full frame or crop it slightly, I think there will be very little difference. This morning I got a chance to field test the Canon R5 with the 150 to 600mm. Opening up the side door here, beside this beautiful lake, I could hear the black-throated loon calling, and it sounded close, so I just grabbed the camera, ran out in my underwear down to the lake and sat down and took some hasty pictures. Luckily no one was around, so I don't think they saw me. But then I went up, got some clothes on and went down again, but the moment was more or less over. The loons had swam off, but I could take some photos and videos a little bit farther away. And it was quite nice. See how the quality is, but I got a sequence when the loons scared the gulls here, and there was a bit of altercation between them. But now it's time to leave this place and see if we can find any other wildlife to take photos of. So let's go. Trying to find wildlife during midday isn't the best way to do it, but I was lucky now driving along and found a buzzard sitting high up in a tree. Buzzards are normally quite skittish, so I was very cautious when I drove slowly up so I could take some photos, and this one was a little bit different. He was sitting quite long. I think it might be a juvenile, because he wasn't that skittish, and he was also calling out. I got some shots, but as you can see, the weather is quite bright. Luckily the sun wasn't up, because that would have been too difficult. And I shot it with the white sky in the background. See how that goes with the Sigma. And then he flew away a bit, and I had to move around the car and get another angle. But then the light was a little bit too strong, I think. But the a second buzzard showed up, and that never happens otherwise. That two buzzards come up to close to the road. So I got some shots of that. So I was taking photos of the buzzard from the inside of the car using this beanbag hanging on the side window here. It was a warm. It is a warm day, and also when stopping the car, you will get heat coming up from underneath the car, and that might have distorted some of the pictures. But we'll see when we look at them at the computer. Using a beanbag like this is really nice, I think, when taking photos from the car. You have multiple angles, but just be careful that you don't drop the lens or the camera outside. That would be disastrous, I think. Well, time to go on and see what we can find otherwise. So I'm doing this mid-July, and that isn't the best period to try to find wildlife. All the chicks have left the nest, the forest is very quiet, and it's midday as well. The reason for that is I've been working really hard, and I haven't actually been out taking photos for almost a year. So this is a new start for me, and we'll see what happens. So when it's sunny outside, find a place where there can be some shadow from the trees or similar, and try to get some photo shoot there. And I found this spot, a small patch of the river that was slow flowing, and trees were hanging low. That made a good dark background for the birds. And I managed to get low even though I was hand holding by using the flip up display on the camera. I think I got some nice shots, and the favorite technique I use is to try to get a light on the subject and find a dark background. And when it comes to water, you will have a shadowy area that you can expose the highlights in the bird, and the background will get very dark or even black. So I found some golden eyes, and I think that is a golden eye chick, some kind of sandpiper, and some mallards, and I think they turned out quite good. But it has been a very warm day. But now the evening is here, and it's time to go out again and drive around and see if we can find any wildlife along the roads. And I plan to go to a place where I know there used to be beavers. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully get some low light opportunities for the 150 to 600 mil. So let's go. I've got some road deer coming up, or rather walking through the fields here. See if I can get any good shots. It was a mother with two small ones, but I waited patiently and they came quite close to the car. So while taking pictures I managed to switch lenses, and looking through the comparison, well, the Sigma is a little bit more noisier, and the camera is a little more blurry background, but still there's very little difference zooming in 100%. So now that the sun is setting, the ISO is rapidly rising. The situation is becoming more of a challenge for the Sigma right now. So we'll see if the beavers are coming back as well. Otherwise, I'll have to find some other dark spots. Luckily, the beaver turned up as planned. And photographing beavers when it's getting darker is quite challenging, even for a professional lens and camera. Mainly because the area when they are swimming, where the camera can focus on, is quite small. And there is a difference here. The Canon lenses, they are a little bit more on edge. The Sigma is hunting a little bit more, especially as soon as it gets a little bit darker. But overall it worked really good, and I think the pictures turned out good actually. Even the one in the end there was 10,000 ISO. That's still a good picture, I think. So now the sun has set and it's time to go out, try to find some moose. It's a route that I have been driving before. Sometimes there are no moose and sometimes there are moose. And we'll hope for the latter this time. So let's go. Well, I'm close to the area now and it's time to prepare my gear. And when I stopped here, I noticed there's a roebuck out on the roe deer is out on the field there. See if I can get any shots of that one. Yeah, well, I didn't come very far. Another roe deer walked out in the same position as the first one. And this time I got some photos and I also managed to change the lens to the 600, but it had moved a little bit, so it was a little bit darker there. But well, it's a really big difference if you have a maximum aperture of 6.3 and putting on a prime lens. We have a f-stop 4. It's a big difference in lighting. Well, let's crack on. So on my left side now is a cow with a calf. You can see if I can get a little bit closer. They are close to the forest edge here, so they might go in there. We'll see. I must say that that situation was a real challenge for the Sigma. We had dark mooses against the dark forest, and there was no ambient light whatsoever on them. And you could definitely see the difference if you're going to use the Sigma or any similar zoom lens with a 6.3 aperture as maximum. In this kind of light, they won't work. I have to pump up the ISO and drop the shutter speed very much to get a picture. And with video, the autofocus weren't there, so I had to do that manually. So yeah, definitely too big situation for the Sigma or any similar brand. There's a big difference when it comes to that low light photography. Well, I think that will wrap up this field testing of the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter. And it has been a couple of hectic days, seen some nice things and seen a lot of nothing as well. But I hope this will give an idea of how this works and the difference with the prime lens like the 600 mm. So all that remains now is to get back to the computer and sort everything out, compare different photos, check out ISO, noise and other issues, and give some kind of summing up. So see you then. Well, you can't really compare the 600 Canon 600 version 2 with the Sigma 150 to 600 without throwing in another piece in the puzzle, and that is the 100 to 400, the Canon 100 400. You can't compare a prime lens and a fixed focus. You can't compare a prime lens with a zoom lens without taking in another zoom lens in the equation. So let's look at the numbers here. The Sigma 150 to 600 has an f-stop of 5 to 6.3, and it weighs about 2.8 kilos. The Canon 600 has a big aperture, so f4, but it weighs almost 4 kilos, 3.9 kilos. And that's not much between this one and the bigger lens. It's just a kilo something. But when you throw in the 100-400, which has a f-stop of 4.5 to 5.6, it weighs approximately 1.6 kilos. So adding up the 600 and the 1-400, you will have a weight that is almost 5.5 kilos. And that is 2.7 kilos more to carry in your bag to have the same range, so to speak. Looking at the price menu, buying this used, there are old lenses by now. So the Sigma comes in at around 750 to 10,000 to 1,000 euros, or $830 to $1,100. The 600 with this one will cost you about 6,000 or 7,000 euros, or 6,500 and 7,500 dollars, and that is a huge difference. Comparing the ranges, if you only use the 600 with the 1-400, you will miss the zoom range between 400 to 600. So you are blank there. You could put on a converter there, but you will only get so far with that. You will not still have the whole range. So how does the 150 to 600 handle in comparison? Well, I mentioned it earlier, it has a kind of hard zoom ring. It is a bit of resistance in that, and it's yeah, when you're filming and changing, you have to be very careful. And also you have to twist it a very long way to get the zoom fully extended. Well, birds, must let them have their way. Okay, and another thing that I have mentioned before is the distance between the grip and the lens, and that is not necessarily a bad thing, because when you have it on a low tripod, you will get the lens closer to the ground, but when you're carrying it, it is a little bit too small. You have to carry it with your fingers. You cannot put the hand in there and carry it in your hand like you can with the 600. But the same goes for the 150. It's a little bit bigger, but on the other hand, the handle is very smaller. That can be fixed with a bigger Arca Swiss plate. But yeah, this is not that heavy, so you can manage that much more easy. Something I've noticed during these tests is that the buttons here they protrude a little bit, so it has happened quite a lot since I carry this in a sling on my side here, that they changed positions, and that have messed up some photos for me, especially when it's puts itself in manual focus and I don't realize what's just happened. If you compare that with the Canon, they are similar, both the 400, 104 and the 600, much smaller, and they don't protrude as much, and they are never changed as far as I know when I'm out. So that is almost the downsizing handling. It is very easy to carry, it is very easy to pack. Your rucksack or whatever you're carrying is a lot smaller now, and that is a big bonus comparing have a 600 and this in one bulky bag. Another thing with the handling is, of course, the accessibility of the zoom as you go on. Even sitting in a hide where you think the subject will be at a certain distance, suddenly something happens and it's easy to zoom in or zoom out. With the other combo, I have to switch lenses or have two cameras. So that's a big plus on handling side. How about the image quality then? Well, this is a sharp lens. This is the sports version. There is a contemporary version, and I don't know how that is, but this is a sharp lens. However, it has less keepers than with the Canon, and I don't know if that is because of the lens or because of the software, the firmware in the Canon cameras. It's a shady area, and well, you never know these days what kind of software the different brands put in their technology. It could also be that it is just zooming in and out all the time, just trying to find the correct distance. In low light conditions, you will get noisier pictures, and of course that is due to that you have to kick up the ISO to get the same exposure as with the others. The f.4 600 and this 6.5 something, there's a difference there. It's quite noticeable when it is really dark outside, but I think that is the only downside on image quality. To sum up this then, on the positive side we have it's very light, it's small, and you have the zoom range, the full zoom range 150 to 600. I have never wanted something less than 150. However, there is an upgrade to this now, and it goes from 60 and upwards. And of course it's lot cheaper than the other two together. The downside is the low light capabilities. They are not that good compared to the 600. It is almost as good as the 100-400, but not quite. Some images can be slightly softer edges. I don't know if that is because the camera taking them, or if it is something in the lens, but I think I've noticed when there is backlit or strong light that the image could be a bit softer. And another downside is that you can only get these used, I think now. It came in production in 2014, I think, and it has since then been replaced, as I said before. So it's a downside that. Overall, it's a good lens. Maybe not use it if you're doing most of your photography dawn and dusk, because then you will have to pump up the ISO very much. I think that will wrap up this episode of comparing these two. If you like this video, please write a comment, click the like button, and feel free to share, and why not subscribe. So with that said, I see you in the next one.